In early 1522, King Louis and Queen Mary traveled to Prague to finally accede to the demands of the Bohemian estates and secure aid for the Ottoman border. But the spread of Lutheran preachings had reignited religious tensions in Bohemia, and unresolved issues and conflicts between the Bohemian nobility required the king's prolonged attention. While the king was in Bohemia, envoys were dispatched from the realm of St. Stephen to garner aid from the Pope, from Venice, and the noble Stephen Esterhazy and the Bishop of Senj were sent to address the imperial diet in April of 1522. They warned of the threat the Ottomans posed to Germany and the Habsburg hereditary lands, appealing directly to Archduke Ferdinand, who had recently come into possession of Austria through a secret agreement with his brother Emperor Charles. As imperial regent, Ferdinand needed a political and economic base in Germany to operate from, but he was hesitant to accept Austria, as Charles demanded that Ferdinand renounce his claims on Spain, Burgundy, and the Low Countries. But Ferdinand was won over when Charles promised him that as soon as he was crowned emperor by the Pope, he would have Ferdinand elected as King of the Romans and of Germany, that is to say, heir to the empire. It should be noted that as soon as Ferdinand arrived in Vienna, he attempted to run things in a more absolutist, Castilian manner, punishing Vienna for its rebellion after Emperor Maximilian's death by taking away some of the city's rights. But I digress. After the appeals from Esterhazy and the Bishop of Senj, the imperial estates decided to send 25,000 soldiers to the Ottoman border. But this success undermined Bernardin Frankopan's mission to Venice. La Serenissima had sided against the emperor in the new round of the Italian wars, so the Grand Council informed Frankopan that they could not spare resources for external aid, and as the emperor was already helping defend the border, they sent Frankopan on his way. In May of 1522, the fortress of Knin, the traditional meeting place of the Croatian estates, fell to the Bay of Bosnia. Upon hearing of this, the nearby fortress of Skradin was abandoned by its meager garrison, and it too was captured. This left the fortress of Klis cut off, but its captain, Peter Kružić, was determined to hold out. Meanwhile, the fortress of Jajce held out another siege, and on the other side of the realm, the fortress of Orsova fell to Ottoman forces that were apparently pursuing the Wallachian Prince Radu V, who fled to Transylvania. He had recently seized the Wallachian throne from Ottoman favorites. Voivod Zapolya and Palatine Batory thought they saw an opening to restore the buffer princedom, and mounted several campaigns to help restore Radu to the Wallachian throne. But although initially successful, Radu would be overthrown soon after Batory and Zapolya withdrew. When the promised German troops arrived in the summer of 1522, they were dispersed across the border, rendering the whole force ineffective. As the fighting was hellish and there was no money to be made, many deserted. The only German troops that remained were in the direct pay of Archduke Ferdinand, who needed them to help defend Austria. The lack of money and manpower caused competition for resources between the border commanders, while the Croatian Ban Karlović had abandoned the practice of even asking Buda for help, as it would not be provided, and he turned to Venice and the Archduke. Karlović himself was exhausted. At several points he offered Venice all of his properties and castles in exchange for an estate in Italy. The Venetians instead increased the money they sent to him to keep on fighting. It was cheaper than having to suddenly provide for the defense of a lot of new castles. Another round of diplomatic missions was dispatched in the autumn of 1522. Stephen Brodarić was sent to Rome to address the Pope and cardinals in September, while King Louis sent the Bishop of Srem and the Croatian Diet sent Bernardin Frankopan to speak to the autumn session of the Imperial Diet at Nuremberg. There they coordinated with the papal legate Ceregatti as to how to present their case to the Diet. On the 19th of November, Ceregatti opened with a speech about church reform and the general threat of the Ottomans to Christendom. He was followed by Bernardin Frankopan, who pleaded for aid for his wretched Croatian homeland, the shield and gate of Christendom, that His Holy Royal Majesty Louis, by the grace of God, King of Hungary and our dearest ruler, having lost his best fortress of Belgrade, cannot help us, nor defend us." He added a note of personal testimony. "We lack people, and those we do have were themselves twice or thrice ransomed from the Turk. I remember the destruction of over 100 fortresses, castles, and towns, horrific massacres on my properties. If Croatia were to come under Turkish rule, God forbid it, a path would open up for these animals into any land they choose, any province belonging to your highnesses." And the Bishop of Srem finished the presentation, reminding the audience that for the past 150 years, Hungary had, with much loss of life and treasure, stood guard as the bastion and bulwark of Christendom. But after the fall of Belgrade, it could not keep back the Mohammedan foe without help. As impassioned as the speeches were, Bernardin Frankopan had made a mistake. He mentioned the Turkish offers of protection in exchange for tribute and safe passage for the raiders, and not warning anyone about the coming raids. He of course assured the Imperial Diet that he personally had refused all of these offers, but in December, his son Krsto Frankopan faced questions in Rome about rumors that his father had been making deals with Turks, especially as Rome had received complaints from the inhabitants of Senj that the Frankopans had made a deal with the Turks to conquer the former familial holding. Some say Frankopan had also made a further error by pleading a second time before the Diet on the 22nd of November, and mentioning the fact that he had no money for his stay or travel, and was thankful for the intervention of the Archduke. It is thought that a man of Bernardin Frankopan's social status, that is to say a member of the nobility, should not talk about money, especially not having any. In December, Bernardin Frankopan made a last address to the Diet, thanking them for giving him 50 florins for his expenses, to which the Archduke added another 300. He also thanked the Diet for giving him 20 arquebuses and enough gunpowder his horses could carry. Whether this was aid or pity is a matter of debate. The Imperial Diet did authorize a further 4,000 soldiers to be sent to fight the Ottomans, but they were now also very concerned about a rebellion of Imperial Knights that had broken out in the autumn of 1522, apparently inspired by Luther's preachings. As for Luther himself, he had emerged from his captivity, during which he translated the New Testament into German, and under the protection of the Prince Elector of Saxony, he wrote a new catechism and began giving Mass in the vernacular, with more participation of the laity. But Luther's movement gave rise to far more radical thinkers, as some of Luther's followers started to feel that he did not go far enough. Some felt that Luther still maintained the sinful separation of spiritual and temporal life. At the end of the year 1522, on the 22nd of December, Sultan Suleiman had conquered Rhodes after a half-a-year-long siege, expelling the Knights Hospitalier from their centuries-old stronghold. And while everything mentioned was going on, the ship Victoria, under the command of Juan Sebastián Elcano, returned to Spain after circumnavigating the globe.